This is The Gorge. It's a podcast where my friend Sara and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a topic. And Sara, what are we talking about this week?
This week, it's Indie Week, and we are as topical as always. You know, we love to talk about the hot new indie game, which means we're talking about a 2-year-old game called Stories Untold. For the PC, and only the PC, but available on both Steam and the Epic Games Store. And in fact, what kind of brought this on was that I'm trying to save money. And so I was like, hey, Stories Untold is free until the end of the month on the Epic Games Store. So let's try it.
Yeah, let's give this one a shot. We'll see how that goes.
Let's give it a whirl. Some people don't like the Epic Games Store. I'm ambivalent toward it because, you know, it's 2019. I really thought the console wars were over, but no. The console wars are still going on, but they're even stupider than usual. So that's cool. But hey, it gave me an opportunity to play Stories Untold, a game I really, really liked until I didn't. So let's get into that.
Yeah, so this is one of those, like, those indie titles that, like, we did, like, our horror trilogy, like, a little while ago.
Right.
And I really felt like a lot of that, I really felt like the same way I felt playing this that I did playing some of those. Especially because, like, boy, I'm a big fan of 80s tech horror.
Yes.
I am loving the 1980s horror aesthetic. I'm thinking of, like, Stranger Things and this, and it's just like, yeah, boy, the one thing this game does really well is, like, its overall design. I love playing a text adventure. I love playing someone playing a text adventure.
Yeah, exactly. It is interesting because, like, video games don't really have how to put this in the right way. Like, if you wanted to make a movie set in the 80s, you have you costume everybody correctly and you make sure your tech is right. But the deal is that if you want to have an 80s flavored video game, all that existed back in the day was pixel art. So instead you have to focus on the physical technology that you were using in the 80s to kind of really get that feeling of being in a time and place. You can't use the aesthetics of the medium at the time because they were so rudimentary. I mean, you can look at Faith, which is another indie horror title using 80s aesthetics in a very different way. But for the story that's being told right now, get that, your best bet is to instead focus on the physical technology itself, which is super interesting and incredibly well executed in this game. Just it's so funny because it's like, this is a game that you are typing on, and they still mic'd out typing sounds when you type in game, just in case you aren't using a mechanical keyboard. You've got like a squishy keyboard. They're like, we're gonna make sure they got that sound. And you know what? Yeah, you actually really need that hard clacky clack sound to get the correct, like, 80s keyboard feeling, you know?
The ambiance, like the tone, you know?
The mood, yes. And they nail it. I mean, it's really cool. It's just, you know, it's very obviously inspired by Stranger Things. I'm thinking of the title credits. And the title treatment itself, the logo type is not exactly the same, but very similar.
I would say it's the Netflix intro.
Yeah.
You know?
It's very Netflix, and I think that's really cool. I love the anthology aspect of the story, because horror anthologies are really fun. You know, this is a game we probably should have played at Halloween, but it wasn't free at Halloween.
Yeah. Yeah, like, each individual chapter, the first 3 chapters are all really good in their own ways. I think the first and the third are my favorites. I wasn't too keen on the second one until it got to the end of it.
The second The ending of the second one is so strong that it makes me like it more. Even though I do agree that, like, the techie aspect of episode 2, there are certain parts of it where, like, there's so many buttons, you don't really know where you're clicking or what you need to be clicking, and so there's kind of like a weird, like, visual clutter element going on, and because of that, it's, you know what I mean? It's kind of like I don't really know what to absorb, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I get, yeah.
The ending is so strong. Oh my god, like, once you hit the ending, we're trying to not be too spoilery.
Right.
For at least the first, let's say 15 minutes, and then we'll launch into it. But yeah, once you get to that little turning point in the second episode, then I was, like, really into it, because it's so ominous, you know what I mean?
Like, each chapter has, like, a thing where it's like, well, here it's kind of like divided in phases. Like, here is the first part, and then here is the second part where it's more or less the same, but it's presented in a different way, you know? Like,
right,
you are kind of doing the exact same thing, but, like, there's a different, like, pace to it now, you know?
It's a lot more, typically frantic.
Yeah.
But, like, it's really good. Honestly, I think of all three, the third one is my favorite until the turn happens. Just because, I guess because, like, I worked with microfiche in college, you know, I wrote papers, and I actually did go down to an old microfiche machine in my library, because I went to a college that was, you know, old, very old, and so it had a microfiche machine in the basement of the library. How incredibly cliche, right? And I spent time on one of those, so I know how to use one of those machines, and I don't know, it is part of the charm of the game, is the replicating the kind of feedback you get from using old analog technology that you don't really get with digital technology.
Yeah.
And it definitely lends the game a lot of charm.
Yeah, I liked the third one. I liked the frantic going back and forth between two different screens.
Yeah.
It's the only chapter where I actually had to physically write something down.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's my favorite.
When a game makes me actually get out a pen and, like, jot a note down.
Right.
Like, that's when I'm like, oh, I'm into this now.
I think we've mentioned that on this podcast before, but I love any video game that makes me actually, like, write things with my hands. Like, Her Story, when I had to take a bunch of notes for Her Story and things like that. It was definitely that aspect of like, having to write down. I don't know, it just pulls you into the game more, and it does kind of evoke an old-fashioned approach to video games, because I still remember playing the first Legend of Zelda, like, years after it came out, mind you, because I didn't play it when it was first announced, or when it was first released, but years after the fact, I played the first Legend of Zelda, and I had to draw a hand-drawn map so that I would kind of know where I was going. And so anytime a game makes me do things by hand, it definitely kind of inspires in me a sense of old-fashioned nostalgia, because it gives you that sense of, like, the way video games didn't hold your hand back in the day, you know?
Yeah, you know, like, it's one thing to make a game that's set in the 80s, you know, like, right. you can do that. I was playing a game recently, Crossing Souls, that is, like, ostensibly, like, it's your 1980s kids on bikes adventure, you know?
Right, yeah.
But it has a lot of modern JRPG.
You mean like Yeek?
Yeah.
Oof. Big ol' oof from... Big ol' fucking oof.
Oof. God. Yeah. All right. No. You know what? I want to say it out loud. Did you see today that he? Just got announced today that he fucking plagiarized.
That's like a whole other topic. That's That's a whole other topic because, like, I don't want to ever, like, defend Yeek because that game is a nightmare, but he does actually explicitly reference Murakami in an interview, and I think even in the credits, so I don't know how much of that is plagiarism and how much of that is, like, you know, referencing a thing that inspired you, but it's definitely still, like, very hacky. It's that old MST3K saying where it's like, don't make me think of something better when I'm like playing your bad video game. Don't make me think of Haruki Murakami when I'm playing your badly written video game, because then I'm just going to want to go read Murakami instead, you know? Right. Like, it's just very poorly considered. Don't do that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll never do a Yeek episode.
Oh, we will never do it. If you donate money to her, do we still have our Ko-fi?
We do have a Ko-fi, yeah. If you donate enough money to the Ko-fi, we'll buy, it'll make us buy
If you donate $200 to the Ko-fi so that both of us get $100, we'll play Yeek. How's that sound? That's Ko-fi.com/THEGOR.
But no, my original point is, like, it's one thing to encapsulate, like, the aesthetic of the 80s, but it's another thing to, like, bring you back as a player to that era where you do have to, like, hand take notes, where you have to, you can't rely on, like, the internet or, like, modern gaming contrivances to help you along, you know? I think back of, like you said, drawing a hand-drawn map of Zelda, or, like, the notes section that existed in instruction manuals back in the day.
Oh, man, yeah. God, that is a bygone era, huh?
Right? The mention of instruction manual is a bygone era.
Yeah, yeah. Instruction manuals aren't really a thing anymore.
No. So, but every box still has the little tabs in it.
Why? I guess to stick the little DLC things in there now. It's like, hey, buy our season pass. Great. PS5's not going to have those at all. That's how the PS5 is going to revolutionize gaming. Is it's just going to take those little tabs out of the game box. But yeah, no, I get what you mean. It's one thing to set it in a time period, and another thing to actually effectively evoke that time period. And in doing things like making it genuinely unwieldy to navigate the microfiche machine, because those things suck. Like, they're not easy to use in the real world because you're always skipping past what you're looking for, and zooming in and focusing is a huge bitch. And yeah, it's not supposed to, you know, I'm playing it, and the actual act of, like, turning knobs and stuff in this game is kind of a pain. But then I'm thinking about how much of a pain it was to actually use a microfiche, and I'm like, no, actually that tracks. Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, so, you know.
And you also have that aspect of, like, you know, two other people are waiting on you.
Yeah.
To finish, you know, like.
Yeah, and I'm really glad there is no time limits in this game, because I'm I'm real dumb, so I'm really glad that they didn't actually have, like, a ticking clock to game over you. It's just, like, the implication of a ticking clock. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
But yeah, like, it does. This game, the overall presentation of it is, like, my favorite part, and it does a great job of, like, despite not really being a horror game, it still puts you on, like, crazy edge.
I would call it a horror game. I think it has enough, at least in the first 3, it has enough horror elements. You know, it's a more slow, subtle horror. It's a very, you know, kind of creeping up on you. There's no jump scares except for, like a light popping off at one point, I think. There's, like, it's more like, not like a big boogity monster jumping out at you, but just, like, you know, a light breaks or a phone rings, and oh god, you jump out of your skin when the phone rings, you know?
Like Anatomy, you know? There's no actual horror. It's all in your head. Like, it's all what you perceive, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the tension in this game is incredible. Oh my god, the game is so... Even without having an actual ticking clock to penalize you for doing things late, the game itself, the tension is so well managed that you spend... Like, you're just dreading things, you know. In the first episode is what I'm thinking of when you hear the one spoiler is when you hear the door open behind you, and you're just like, And because it's the first episode, you're expecting, like, you know, you don't know the rules of Stories Untold yet, so you're expecting to turn around and get that boogity-boogity moment, but it never comes. And that's almost scarier.
Yeah, it's, like, the first one, like, the first chapter is really, like, the more horror one, like, out of the three, and then, like, but, like, there's still bits throughout the other two that it's just like, I don't... You know, it's always that fear of, like, what's behind me, you know?
Yeah, I guess that's true. The third one, the second one is more like a body horror thing, and body horror doesn't really do things. I think body horror is neat and interesting, but unless it's, like, really over the top, it doesn't scare me. But the third episode, I think, actually spooked me a little bit more for, like, a bunch of reasons. Of just, like, you know, you're out in the middle of nowhere and bad things are happening, and we're about to get into spoiler section, so, you know, we're going to try and keep it simple. Yeah. And so, like, bad things are happening, and you don't really know what's going on, and you're doing something bad, but you don't really know, like, exactly how bad the thing you're doing is. It's so good. Actually, I think... Excuse me. I think episode 3 is my favorite. Yeah. Although 1 is more explicitly like an actual horror story.
I think so too. I think its gameplay mechanic is my favorite, and I think the overall what happens in it is probably the most chilling to me.
Until it doesn't.
Yeah. So that's like our spoiler-free breakdown.
It's pretty vague. I think we did good.
I mean, as far as like gameplay mechanics go, it's all very simple stuff to do. It's again more the aesthetic and horror part that you have to kind of experience yourself to really get what we're talking about. Until now, when we start going into details.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, the general gist of it is it's free on the Epic Game Store until the end of the month. It takes like 2 to 4 hours to beat, depending on how good you are at puzzling in the last section.
How much you want to explore too? Like, there's a little bit, especially in the chapter 1. There's a bit more you can kind of poke around with.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a pretty simple game. So hey, it's cheap, it's free, and it's short. So, like, if this sounds at all interesting to you, hey, turn off the podcast and go play it right now, because it's absolutely worth your time. Even though the final act completely shits the bed, you should still play Stories Untold. So there you go. That's your spoiler warning. You should still play Stories Untold. I'm going to give you a heads up about the final episode. Otherwise, super worth your time. That being said...
Alright. Yeah. So...
Have you ever deflated so hard in your life?
I was so bummed out by the end of that game.
Ugh. And not like in a sad, bummed out way.
No, not in like
in a disappointed way.
Yeah, not in like oh man, this story really got to me and I feel really down. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me with this horse shit right now, really?
You fucking...
Really?
The back down, the cowardice, the unwillingness to actually let the story be about some horror bullshit. No. That is just like, what a letdown. What a huge... I was just, as the story kept going, I just kept waiting. I'm like, there's gotta be a turn. It can't be this cut and dry. It cannot be, it was all a dream. They can't be that stupid. Right? There's no way. It's 2019 and you're going to put out a game that ends in it was all a dream?
It was all a coma dream. It wasn't real. It was all fake. Like, the most annoying part is that the dream part was so fucking intriguing.
It was! Like, literally all 3 stories could still be tied together as the story of like a weird fucked up alien invasion. You know what I mean?
Right? The chapter 2 and the part where you are puppeting the other pod thing.
Yeah.
And you are, I don't know if you notice this in chapter 3, when you're messing with the FM radio, you can catch broadcasts.
I caught one in German, but I think it was German. It was a foreign language, and obviously I had no idea what they were saying because I don't speak German.
There was a German one, and then, like, when I heard that one, I kind of, like, slowed down my scrolling.
Oh, man.
Like, and I caught one that was in English, and it was talking about, like, I think it was, like, evacuations or, like, cities that have disappeared and stuff. And it's like, oh, man, that's so good!
I should have tooled around with the radio more. I was so interested in what was actually going along, like, on in the plot in episode 3 that I was just like, no, decode things. Let's do it. Let's go. But I should have screwed around more. But yeah, it was like the first 3, and even like the House Abandoned chapter, the first one was like, there was that weird element of being yourself and being something else at the same time, because that's how the chapter ends, is like, you know, like the whole thing was that these things are all like the little pod aliens are all like, they're like a hive mind, and they can pilot bodies, is the way I was understanding it, is they can take control of, like, or a body can take control of them, or vice versa. And so it was like, this guy is playing this game, and it takes a horror turn, and because he's experiencing that at the same time, this alien invasion, and this, like, alien has, like, latched onto him and is, like, coming to him, and it's, like, replicating his weird brainwaves, you know?
Yeah, and then, you know, you get this, like, the house itself being empty, and, like, the you know, like, it says abandoned, and there's food rotting in the kitchen.
Yeah!
There's, like, photographs that are burnt out, and it's like, what, you know, you try to figure out, like, what happened, who is this, you know, this person, what did they do, like, that would bring them back to the house after all this time, and either hallucinate, or there is some sort of, like, displacement going on, this disassociation of like how you are seeing yourself playing the game, and you are hyped up, and you get the aliens in the second part, and then the idea of the invasion of people, like, literally vanishing, and then
it was all a dream,
and then nothing. He was in a coma.
There's no payoff. It's the worst. It is, like, to me, nothing proves that you have less confidence in your story than when you pull and it was all a dream. Because you're like, oh, whoopsie doodle, we got a little too wild, you know, we got a little too fantastical and sci-fi, so let's bring the viewer back down to earth and say it was all a dream. And it's like really? I'm playing a fucking video game. It's
that bro, I mean, that's kind of cringe, bro.
It's kind of cringe, bro. You're gonna lose subscriber.
you will lose a subscriber.
It's like, you really couldn't think of any better way to... And I know people can say, like, yeah, but it was implied throughout... And I could... Like, you know, I think back on it now. Yeah, it's, like, implied through every chapter that this is, like, a weird... Or at least the plot twist with the dead sister is, like, alluded to the whole time. But here's the thing. They worked backwards, you know? Like... It was never... It feels like they wrote these 3 stories, and then they got to the end, and they're like, oh, we need a twist. Well, let's just do It Was All a Dream, because we're not nearly as creative as the first 3 episodes would lead you to believe.
Yeah.
That's what sucks about this. And so they do this, and then they're like, okay, well, now let's go back and add in, like, you know, suggestions that it was all a dream instead of a cool alien invasion story. I mean, it's like... You really couldn't just do a cool supernatural alien invasion story? Really?
Yeah, especially if you're gonna set your thing in the 80s, you know, when this kind of thing would have come out, you know?
Yeah, it's fine. You can have a fantastical story. I was so on board with this game for the whole 3 episodes. Like, like, you know, you said episode 2 is a little bit weaker, but the ending is so strong, and then it's like, oh, there's aliens at the end of episode 2, and then you get into episode 3 and you're like, oh, more alien stuff. So this is like a cool, like, fucked up, like, nightmare alien story, you know? And that sounds interesting. No, it was all a dream. Man!
What it does is it takes all of the cool parts of it and completely nullifies them. I'm thinking of the part where in Act 2 where you are doing the text adventure as the alien escaping their crashed ship, you know?
Yeah.
And they are approached by by a man in a suit, you know, the hazmat style thing, you know, first contact, whatever. And then it turns into, you're like, oh, these scientists have kidnapped these creatures and they're holding them and they're doing experiments on them and stuff. And, you know, the thing that you just did, you know, to experiment on, like, it killed this thing or whatever. Like, you mutilated it.
Right.
And then, oh, no, he was drunk and he crashed his car.
God. And it's like you even went with, like, the most cliche version of that, which is, oh, my dead sister. Like, yet again. Like, it's 2019, and I guess this game came out in 2017. It was 2017, and somebody legitimately still wrote, like, my dead female whoever in my life is, like, the plot twist. You know what? Silent Hill already did that, buddy. And that's, like, that's the thing, is that Silent Hill 2 happened. And that's the only time that twist has ever been good, basically, ever. The whole, like, oh, I was actually suppressing all the memories of, like, you know, this lady that I loved who I murdered. You know? Like, it's only ever been done once correctly.
And you know what, though? The thing is, Silent Hill 2 happened.
It was real! Like, yeah, it's not all in James's head.
Yeah, no, he went to a town, and the town preys on your fears and makes them real. It makes them manifest. Not, oh, he was dreaming. And it wasn't real. It was a hallucination.
James is actually. God, could you imagine if Silent Hill 2 had ended with James is actually in an asylum? Come on,
like he just wakes up somewhere.
Oh my God! After killing his wife and they institutionalized him or something. Ugh. No, God, makes you want to throw up, right? Like, it's just like it is the least So, the It Was All a Dream twist is, on its own, utterly uninspired. And then, it is the least creative version of that twist. Like, the most rudimentary approach to It Was All a Dream. Like, fucking General Hospital or whatever it was, Saint Elsewhere? The one where it's like, it was all the dream of an autistic kid playing with a snow globe. That's more interesting than, like, this shit.
It's, like, and it feels, like you said, it feels so cowardly. Because we're living in an era where stuff like irony poisoning is real.
Yes.
Where people are afraid to be genuine about things.
Yeah.
And, like, the back down of going from a weird psychological alien horror, like a species from beyond this world comes and invades our planet, and it's like a weird horror take on it, is fantastical and intriguing and like a legitimate threat, but you back down for a hallucination instead. So there's no threat.
You back down for like the most boring possible plot twist. You know, it's like if you had told me it was all a dream, but that dream was something like, I don't know, the aliens were like imposing on James. Oh yeah, hey, look at that, James. God damn it. That's right. Oh, man, see, this is how uncreative it is. Like, you know, if these were all, like, dreams that were being forced upon James or something like that, or this was all, like, what they should have done was double down on the twist, right? Like, you wake up, And it's like, oh, you killed your sister in a car accident, and you've been in an asylum, and your family's abandoned you. And then, like, you have this moment where, like, wait a second, that's all a little too convenient, don't you think? And then, bam, twist again. It actually is an alien invasion, and you're in, like, a brain pod or something like that to keep you complacent. You know?
You know what, though? That would, actually, that reminds me of, they do something similar in Captain Marvel. That's really interesting, where there's a scene where, like, the aliens are, like, probing her memories for stuff, and they're using her to gather information by slightly manipulating her memories to make her look around to things that she didn't see at the time.
Right.
And so you could do something like that, where, like, you're
cool.
looking at this guy's memories, and, like, he's remembering the beginning of the invasion, what he was doing at the time, and they're trying to coach it, like, they're trying to couch it in, like, this way of, like, oh, you're in a hospital and we're trying to fix your amnesia.
Yeah, we're trying to fix your broken brain after a car accident.
And then, no, they're trying to use you to get information on, like, what the humans were doing during the invasion,
Or it could be cool the other way around, where it's like the government grabbed this guy who saw the invasion and they need him for reconnaissance or something, so they're doing horrible things to his brain, and it turns out the aliens are not the worst evil. I don't know. Shit, I could write this all day. It's
just something that's a bit, that's, like, willing to be fantastic,
Yeah. Like, double down on it. The deal is that... The deal is that we played the game, and if you made it all the way to the end of the game, you bought into this game's universe, right? Like,
right.
If you played the whole game through, all the way through, you've bought into this game's universe, and you've accepted it. You're like, okay, cool. For one, it's a fucking video game, and everybody is like, yeah, sure, video games, that means aliens, and playing an old video game within a video game, and like, weird supernatural stuff. We've accepted that. You don't need to do the back down. Like, you can follow through. And people would accept that. If you go into it, like, completely legitimately, people will accept that as, like, as acceptable and true, and something they're willing to be cool with, and they want to see it to fruition. And it just feels like ending it on it was all a dream is such a, like, half-assed way to pull out a twist, It's I put It Was All a Dream is the creator equivalent of the reaction of, well, this guy must be on drugs to come up with this. Yeah, it's exactly.
Like, how creatively bankrupt do you have to be to think that the only way your story could exist is if it wasn't real?
Yeah, exactly. You can't accept the fact that, like, weird shit can happen. You can't, you're not expecting the audience to accept that weird shit can happen. You have to couch it in, like, a really drab and depressing reality. Like,
what... That kind of thing renders your story pointless, basically.
Yeah.
Like...
all that horror you felt before is just kind of fizzles. You're not really left with, like, a story of, like the horrible unknown, or, like, maybe how people can be just as monstrous as monsters, if you want to go that twist, or anything like that. You're just kind of left with, like, this story about some kid who drove drunk and killed his sister, and it's like, yeah, that's sad, but for one, how do you expect me to be at all emotionally invested in that story when we don't even know who the main character is?
Yeah,
or,
we don't
like,
know
who his sister was, or anything like that,
Until that point, the only reality we know about this game is what the game has told us, which is that there is some sort of weird, fantastic event happening. There is a weather station, and, like, people are slowly dropping out. They're being warned not to go outside. They're being warned to lock their doors, but they still want this data processed. There's a facility somewhere that is experimenting on a beating heart.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been told exists in this world, and then it was nothing. It was all
nothing. It was all just a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate this twist. I hate anytime this twist happens. I just think it's so boring and so uninspired, especially when the rest of the game is really good. That's the problem too, is that like I still, even with what we've been bitching for 20 minutes, you know?
And like the other thing is that like the bad writing, like the back down is really highlighted again because the presentation is still so strong.
Yeah.
The part where you are back in the shed, you know, on the computer doing House Abandoned.
Yeah.
And you hit the car accident and the monitor explodes.
Oh, that part is so good, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. There's glass in the air and the monitor is floating.
You're still
like the car's
trying to read the monitor even though there's like blood and glass everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, and the lights flashing to like glare, and it's like, oh, that's so good. The part where even like the gameplay, the part where you are doing the emergency surgery when James is first brought in, and you're doing it on the same equipment you did the last time.
Yeah.
And that's still really cool because you have the doctor like, okay, we need this, you know, we need this. It's like there's more urgency in it than the last time when you were doing just an experiment, you know. Mm-hmm. But it just feels empty and like
it's just such a fizzle. It's such a like, oh, okay. Sure, I guess. I don't know. Even the part where it like the disappointment sets in right away in Act 4. Oh, almost instantly, yeah.
Because it's like, oh, here's the cool credit sequence that you come to expect the whole time, and oh, it was a TV show.
Oh yeah.
Actually,
what a slap in the face where you've been like really enjoying this like, you know, this anthology horror series, and you're watching the credits, and then it just stops and goes, oh, nope.
Time.
You've been watching too much of that, and it's like, oh,
and
cool, thanks.
And then if you go back in that room and investigate the tape, and it's just like, oh, it's some crappy horror anthology. Who cares? And it's like,
oh,
what was this written by a different team or something?
Like who is responsible for this twist? It feels so like it is irony poisoning to be like, oh, this is just a crappy horror anthology, and it's like, you know, that is the height of irony poisoning, is to call the thing you've made like, haha, it's so shitty, isn't it funny? Like we don't take it seriously, and neither should you, and so I won't. You know, it is the back down. It's the ultimate back down.
If you don't care, why should I care?
Why should I care? Yeah, exactly. I feel like they manufactured, because like the only good part of the back down is when you go to turn the transmitter on at the end of the 3rd episode, and you're walking back, and like it's weird and dreamy, and you're like, what is going on? And then I feel like the whole thing exists to when you open the shed and you get that real brief shot of the computer room from Act 1, and it's like, oh shit, you have that really good moment of like, oh shit, what was that? And then it ends. Like, you only get like a little brief flicker of it, and then it cuts to credits, and it's like a cool old-fashioned, like, you know, cliffhanger that's good. And you're like, yeah! And then you get to the 4th episode, and you're like, oh no, it's bad! What have they done? I was having such a good time! Yeah.
We were all having a good time until you showed up.
You showed up, Mr. Bad Twist Ending. I didn't invite you to this party. I was having fun.
Where are the aliens? I was promised aliens.
You told me there would be an alien invasion, and I was looking forward to it. I love that part in the 3rd episode where something thumps on the top of the roof, and you're just like, oh, fuck!
Yeah, you know? and then the game has the audacity to say, go outside.
Oh, and you're like, oh, you're really fucking funny, video game. I am about to actually physically die. And you're telling me to go out into that shit. Okay.
The weather station especially is like so great because like you are helpless.
Oh,
you know?
100%, yes.
You get the thing where it's like you pick up the transmission of like the rescue, like the supply team, and it's like, well, we can't do anything. We can't go get them.
We can't help them. We're just a bunch of radio operators in fucking Antarctica or wherever. Like, what are we gonna do? And like, okay, so I mentioned it. I think like the scenario of Act 3 is, at least for me, like the most personally scary. I mean, of course, I've mentioned before that I have a big thing for like house horror. So like Anatomy and PT, like places that turn your home into an unsafe place. Like that gets to me. But the notion of like alien invading force, you are in the middle of nowhere, you can't get anywhere, you're stuck, you're in like Antarctica, you don't have a car, it's storming outside, you can't radio for help, you can't do anything, you basically have to help initiate like an apocalypse because you're launching missiles.
Right, yeah, whatever you're doing, you're attacking something.
Yeah, and so you're basically like, I'm pretty sure you're launching missiles or whatever. And so just that whole scenario of like total helplessness, and yet you're still like, I gotta end the world, is really scary. Okay, so this is a tangent, but it has a purpose that's kind of similar. There's a really good YouTube horror series called Local 48, and you've got to watch it. You probably shouldn't watch it, Ben, because you're a scaredy cat, and it will traumatize you.
I'm a big coward, man.
You're a big coward, man. I'm very proud of you for making it through this game. Because when we started playing this game, I was like, I don't think it's, I've heard about it. I don't think it's that scary. And then I was playing it, and I was like, I did this to Ben, and he's a big coward, man. I'm so sorry. Local 48, that's what I'm talking about, is a really cool YouTube horror channel that is presented in the idea of local news broadcasting. And one of their episodes is like a short that's about how, like, in the event of an invasion, you should go out into your front lawn and kill yourself. And, like, something about that, and it's implied to be, like, a Soviet invasion, but also later the series kind of implies, like, horrifying, like, the moon is alive alien invasion, which is always, you should watch it if you're, in the daytime with your wife, to protect you.
Watch it at work.
Watch it at work, yeah. Can't be scared of anything at work. That's not true. I watched the PT playthrough at work, and it scared the living shit out of me. I'll tell that story someday. But, yeah, it's that same idea of, like, you are so totally helpless in the face of, like, of a cosmic horror from beyond the stars that you cannot possibly do anything with. So your only option is to kill yourself in the most, like, brutal and flashy way possible. And something about that just gives me, just thinking about it, I'm just getting, like, the heebie-jeebies. Mm-hmm. So, like, just I was really on board with episode 3, is what I was saying.
Yeah, and then, like...
It's so scary, and then it's just not.
And then, well, episode 3 really reminded, like, I really felt like you linked it somewhere, but it's that Twitter account that's, like, the sun has gone out.
Oh, the sun vanished. Yeah, it's a great Twitter account.
But that idea of, like, well, there's something out there, and you are isolated. There is, you can call people, you can talk to people, but there is nothing they can do for you. Yeah, what are they gonna do? The way it's chaos out there. They can't come to you, you can't go to them, supplies aren't coming. You are utterly helpless in a way that, like, in a way that you can't be helpless in a normal situation, you know? So, like, I wanted more of that. That was the scary part. That was the intriguing part. It's one thing, like, if you want to do It Was All a Dream, you have to set it up. You have to show weird things that don't make sense, even within the logic of your story. The story, like, Shutter Island, is a great movie that does that really well. And it's like, it shows you a few things, you're like, wait, that's not what should happen, or that's, a weird thing that happened now. That doesn't make any sense. And then you piece it together later, and then that's the twist, is, oh, no, he was making it all up. But this doesn't have that. And the bits that it does have are not as interesting as the alien aspect.
Well, it's like, too, there's stuff that you could argue is the setup. I'm thinking of the bit at the end of the second episode, toward the end of the second episode, when you and the alien thing are mind linked and you see like a girl in a body bag. But I thought that was either the player character or something else, or it was just like a horror aspect. It's just really, there's like a few little things. There's like the implication in your sister's bedroom in the good version of A House Abandoned, where all of the photos in her dresser are pictures of a forest road, which is where the car accident happened. It's like, so it's like kind of established, but not solidly enough. And the problem is that the thing you did establish really solidly is just way more interesting. There's
nothing until the end of the game that made me go, wait a minute, is this a dream?
Yeah.
There's no part of it that made me question the reality. There were parts that made me wonder what was happening.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Nothing that made me go like, wait, is this real? Is this is this a dream? Is this a hallucination? Like, one of the things that stands out, like, is, well, it's like they worked backwards, because they establish later on that, when you're doing The House Abandoned, the prompt, the text for when you type in an invalid command is, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then it's revealed later on that his mom was just repeating that over and over again because she was in shock that her daughter is dead,
Yeah.
But that's not a good setup. That's not a good hint or setup for that, because that's
just how text adventures work.
Yeah, that's not a would you kindly,
Right, yeah.
That's not like, it's not at any point where it didn't say, like, it didn't glitch out and say, I don't understand doctor, or I don't understand James, or something, to make you, like, question what it meant. Or in Act 3 where the Station 2 is talking to you on the radio and she says, like, I'm cold, I can't feel my legs.
Yeah.
Well, in earlier in that chapter, like, it established that something is happening to the stations, and so that doesn't seem too weird or out of place to have her suddenly, like, be afraid or injured in some way,
Yeah. It's just so, like they do the thing with the doctors repeating the same lines over again when you get into the psychology exam at the beginning of 4. It's the same lines that they say at the beginning of 2. But again, it's not doing anything to, like, suggest that something is off. At this point in the game, you have accepted the weird horror movie logic is the thing. And, that is technically what a twist is to pull, like, the rug out from under you. It's I see dead people. It's like all of those standard, like, movie twists, what I mean? And that's what a twist is meant to do, but the problem is that in this case, it's just that the twist is not as satisfying as what we were getting, I don't mind a twist in a plot, like, at all. But it's just that the payoff is not as good as the setup.
Yeah, the problem is, well, for one thing, is that a good twist has setup that you can notice.
Yeah.
Not saying that you will notice it, but if it's your first time experiencing something, a good twist is something that you can, if you are observant enough, you can notice, you can expect it to happen,
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you can see the clues and see the payoff. Like you said, the Sixth Sense one is great, because if you are paying really close attention, you can discern that right away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you can guess from the beginning that, Bruce Willis has been dead the whole time. Like,
yeah, he oh, that's right, he doesn't really talk to anyone, or
his wife doesn't ever talk to him, yeah.
Yeah, they're people don't acknowledge him, he's kind of, it's weird that, like, they skipped ahead, like, we didn't get any resolution as to what happened to him in the beginning, but, and then there's a payoff at the end, and I see now, that's right, none of that made sense.
Right.
But this game doesn't do that. This game sets up a twist or reveal within its own logic, and then goes, no, that wasn't real, that was all, this is what it really meant, and there's no way for us to pick up on that.
Yeah, and I mean, it just sucks. It just sucks because what we were getting was just way more interesting. That's what it really boils down to. Is that if there was some sort of crazy twist, and there was, like, not a great setup for it, if it had been, like, even a little bit more interesting than it was all a dream, you're just a guy having, like, crazy person dreams. Like, that is so dull. If it had been anything even remotely more interesting, I would have been like, oh, okay, that's cool. But it's not. It's like the most bottom of the barrel version of a twist ending.
Mm-hmm. And you know what the thing is, really? Is when you first told me about this game, like, I want to do this one for Indie Week, this looks good, it's free. And I'm like, all right, I'll do another horror game.
Sorry.
And then I was like, oh, look at that logo, though. Look at the name that produced this game, Devolver Digital.
Ooh.
They are known for going completely outlandish and doing ridiculously crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally on board now. I am interested to see what kind of batshit stuff happens in this game. Oh.
No. And for a while there, it was batshit. That was the thing, is you're getting a really cool alien concept with these little floating node dudes that, like, can interface with people, and you can experience their memories through text, and, you're getting, like, you're getting weird, sort of The Thing-esque Antarctica horror going on, and you're doing cool spy shit because you're deciphering a numbers station, and if you like spooky things at all, then you probably have, like, a vague fascination with number stations. I know I do.
Oh, I think number stations are, like, the coolest, scariest thing in the world.
They're the coolest, scariest thing in the world, and it's like, oh, you get to be a guy at a number station. How cool is that,
Like, if I actually encountered a number station in real life, I would be legitimately traumatized for the rest of my life.
You would probably die. You would probably die from the fear. And I mean, like, that's valid, honestly. That is, I would never judge you for that, because number stations are scary. But yes, you're like a guy who's actually part of, like, a number station network, and you're, like, figuring out spooky things, and there's coded messages, and you're learning Morse code, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. And then, like, this fucking game is just like, no, I know you're having fun with the fantasy of it all, and really getting into, like, the weird sci-fi horror elements, but no, it's way more mundane and boring than that. I'm like, man, come on, guys.
It's time to grow up.
Ugh, God,
you can't be silly anymore.
I'm playing video games. I'm not doing this to grow up, y'all.
Right?
I'm 30 years old. I'm still playing video games, and I have a video game podcast. No, I'm not growing up anytime soon.
Like, if you were to see this in a movie, people would be fucking livid walking out of the theater, Because
it's so overdone, especially in films, and Jesus, you would think that with all of the fucking, like, very obvious film references going on in this, and the fact that it's just a straight up Netflix, credit sequence at the beginning of every episode, it's like, you'd think these people would understand films a little bit better.
Oh my, I almost forgot about, that's what I was thinking of, is that Black Mirror Bandersnatch thing they did. Like, this has that level of, like, aura, and Bandersnatch was really, really fucking good, and it had a really good payoff at the end.
And Bandersnatch doesn't end, I haven't even seen Bandersnatch, and I know it doesn't end with a fucking, it was all a dream.
No, it is a fucking phenomenal thing. Jeez. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm into this, and then, like, I just can't express how much I am bored and hate this kind of thing. This idea of snatching what made your thing interesting and going, no, that's dumb. That's for dumb people.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a dumb horror compilation, but it's all we have.
It's like, take some fucking pride in this cool thing you made, guys.
Yeah.
Like, it's a cool thing. The first three, that's the deal, is that even still, I'm still like, you should play Stories Untold just for the first 3 episodes, because they are that solid, you know?
And you know what? This reminds, what was the one we did? We did Rot, what I think it was, where it had a very similar like thing where like there's something about a car crash in here.
Yeah.
But
that was still real, and that was a purgatory, you know? Like that guy was clearly in purgatory, and it was all in his head, but it was still happening, you know?
Yeah. There was a tactile element to it, you know? And then this is just like, why you removed the reason that I should give a crap about what happened in this story. Like,
I don't care about like someone having a car crash in the fucking boonies of England, you know? Like,
yeah.
That's not, you know, you're telling me a fantastical story and then you're giving me a mundane explanation.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, I can care about a car crash in the boonies of England, but not when you're building me up for an alien invasion, you know?
Yeah. It's a shame. Still think the first 3 episodes are so fucking solid. That's the problem. I think that's why I'm so angry, is because the first 3 episodes are like really, really solid, and it's like I could so easily see a version of this game that had a better ending.
Right? Like, this combines a lot of the elements of like some of my favorite indie weeks we've done. Like Her Story, the interface thing, you know, like you're playing a person playing a game, or playing a person looking at a computer. And, you know, the cool horror parts that I really liked about stuff like Rod or Anatomy or Faith, you know?
Yep.
And you are building up for this cool thing, and it's by Devolver Digital, which is a studio that I really like, and they're known for being crazy outlandish, and then... Well,
Devolver published it. They didn't make it. But yeah, I get what you mean.
The same company, the same publishing company that is reviving Metal Wolf Chaos...
Yeah.
is also going to put their name on The Back Down.
The ultimate back down. Stories back down. Jeez.
It's just it's just like they didn't take enough pride in their cool aspect, you know?
That's what it is. They, or if not pride, they just didn't have the confidence to sell it. You know?
Yeah.
They didn't have the confidence to just be like, this is our fucking story about an alien invasion, and we're gonna roll with it and be proud of it. You know? They backed down at the last minute.
And it's so weird because, like, the other 3 acts are so powerful because they have such a really good interface and a weird sense of like that detachment that's kind of unnerving. Yeah. You know? Like, because you're like a step removed from the game itself.
Yeah, because there's like an actual computer. There's 2 levels of computer between you and the game, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so you get that like weird like unsettling distance, and it's like that's really, really cool. And then they didn't have a good finale in mind.
It's like, and honestly, you could save this whole game if in like the last 10 minutes of the "It Was All a Dream" section, they went, "Psych! It's not actually all a dream. There's some other weird, fucked up shit going on."
Yeah.
And then you end on a downer ending. Just do it, because it's a horror story. You can do that. You're supposed to do that. You know, like. It's like you could if they had done that, if it had been like, "It was all a dream." No, it isn't. Haha, I got you, sucker. I would have loved it. I would have been like, "This is the best game I've played all year. This isn't Devil May Cry." But instead, they backed down and they chickened out and they couldn't sell it. And, you know, it's a shame. You hate to see it.
It is. It is, and I want the studio to realize that and
I want another
try
one.
again, because
I would really like another one. Yeah.
The what they developed already is phenomenal. And
oh god, it's so good.
Like, holy shit, this presentation is astounding, and I was like legitimately like unnerved at a lot of different parts of this thing. And
do it with 90s tech next.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
And then
like
commit.
An old PlayStation, and then commit. Yeah. That'd be
do
cool.
fucking let's see them do Petscop.
That'd be cool. It's like, come on, man. Okay. Yeah, I just want a sequel, and yet still I'm like, it's still a good game. It's still a good game. The first 3 episodes are really, really good. Just turn it off after the 3rd episode. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just don't be afraid, you know?
Roll with it.
Don't back down. Don't be like, oh, they'll never accept that. We will. We totally will.
We were already accepting it, is the thing. Everybody was like, oh shit, aliens. No, it's not. So yeah. Oh well.
Yeah,
Stories untold.
Mm-hmm.
Stories, more like stories untold about alien invasion. I don't know. I'm trying to make a joke. I can't do it.
Stories should have stayed untold if you weren't gonna fucking pull it off at the end.
That's good. That works. I'll take it. Stupid. Also, the music in this game is really good. That's like such a short thing, but like all the synth. I love synth music, and this music's really good, and it's a very, everybody's gonna say it's like Netflix, but yeah, it's like Netflix is cool. Whatever.
I'm liking the 80s throwback fad that we're going through, because it's making synth music popular again.
And synth music is always really cool. Yeah. I'm cool with that. I'm ready, but I am ready for like a 90s revival now. Like I said, I want to see. That's the other thing. Like real quick, one final little swerve into Divergence Town. There aren't enough horror games that are anthologies.
That's true. This is a good medium for that.
It is, and it's like, because like the micro horror genre is a thing on itch now. I mean, obviously, we've talked about micro horror a lot on this, and it's like, you could, like a studio like this that obviously has a lot of talent, even if they couldn't stick the landing, it's like, you could make a really solid, like $20 to $30, like 5-story horror anthology and put it out every Halloween or every other Halloween, just little tiny short stories. And I would love that, because, I mean, that is a huge staple of Halloween and like the horror, kind of the horror film genre, is the anthology, or the here's 10 DVD, or here's 10 movies on one DVD for $10, like on Best of the Worst. And it's like, yeah, you could do that in video games these days, especially now that, like, you have Unity and like UE4 that are more accessible to make games quickly. You totally have the technology now to make just a bunch of small micro horror, stories, and you stick them all in one game, and you sell it as, this is a horror anthology. And then you don't, unlike in Stories Untold, you don't make them connected at all. They're all totally disconnected, and they each are telling their own little spooky tale, and you put that out. And I think, there's a space for that in the industry. And it's like, I would really like to see somebody else tackle that. I know the Until Dawn people are apparently doing some kind of anthology thing.
Yeah, they put out their first, I think it's coming out soon, or it already is out. It's like a 5-part horror thing.
Yeah.
The first one's like The Man from Madrid or something, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, that looks like really interesting.
It's like, I'm cool with that. I would really like to see more of that, and there's space for it. Anthologies are cool. It gives you little tiny baby stories, and you get a lot of neat concepts that you can't turn into a full game. You can't turn it into a movie. So you make it into a little baby game.
Like when you are, like, the thing that's kind of like if you're a good writer, you can write a horror story in a single paragraph,
Yeah,
like, if you're a good enough game dev, you can make a horror game that takes 5 minutes, and it's still scary as hell.
You mean like September 1999? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So yeah, I would love to see that, and Just don't ruin it at the end.
Don't fuck it up. That's all I'm asking. I'd like a Stories Untold season 2, where they actually go for it. Because I mean, again, first 3 episodes are really solid.
Mm-hmm. And just call it season 2, even.
Literally, just call it season 2. Yeah.
You are very clearly aping the Netflix aesthetic for your game.
It's fine. It looks cool, and you kind of know exactly what you're getting into with a look like that. You're like, oh, these are like little micro stories. It's cool. So I would really like a season 2. The short version is, hey, you should play the first 3 episodes of Stories Untold. Get it now, because it's free on Epic. So if you somehow sat through all of this and listened to us bitch for 40 minutes, and you still for some reason want to play it, then hey, it's free on the Epic Game Store right now. I think if you want to pay money, and I would honestly, you're totally cool if you want to spend money on it. I actually do still think it's worth money. I'm just trying to be cheap. It's $10 on Steam. It's totally worth it. You should look into it and play Stories Untold. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, before we get into the ending spiel, don't forget, we're going to be at MomoCon this week. What is today? Today is Monday the 20th. So, Friday the 24th of May, we will be at MomoCon. And you should come visit us if you see us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd really love it. We're handing out stickers of the Big Gay Nerds logo and the Gorge logo. So if you find us and you recognize us, we'll give you both.
Yep, absolutely. And then, thank you to Visit Your Piece of Background Music. You can follow me on Twitter at The Gorge Podcast. You can follow Sara at Radio Inactivity. And if you want to listen to really cool stories that don't end poorly, you can listen to Sarah's other podcast.
That is an actually incredible segue because, hey, I'm in another podcast called Big Gay Nerds where me and a bunch of cool queer friends get together and we play tabletop games. We actually just finished our most recent little baby campaign for Fate Core. So this is an excellent time to come in and listen to all of Fate. It ends in a really fun way, and you should come check us out. And then once Fate is over, we're getting back to Blades in the Dark, which is my favorite system probably ever. I know, it's so good. You should come check us out at Big Gay Nerds on SoundCloud, and you can find the links to the rest of our social media from there.
All right, that'll do it for us. This one's easy, man. Fuck that ending.
Fuck that ending, you cowards! I can't even go on my normal Sara rant because it's like
I just
did it. Man.
I think not only is it such a huge back down, but way to make your main character just the biggest asshole alive,
Yeah, what a prick. Thanks. So not only did you ruin a perfectly good storyline, but you're trying to make me sympathize with this massive asshole. It's not gonna happen. It's not happening.
It didn't work.
It extremely failed. So fuck that shit.
Nope. Fuck
Good night,
that.
everyone.
Good night, everyone.